Going It Podcast. I am Shane Sparks. This is episode number 26, part 2, with 2011 national champion for Iowa State, Jon Reader. He, of course, was a 3-time state champion at Davison High School in Michigan. Jon, you are a passionate guy. Part 1 of this podcast was fantastic. I want to ask you this question out of the gate here on part 2. What is something within the sport of wrestling that fires you up the most? Within the sport, whatever it might be.
I just think what fires me up about is that I have 100% control over the discipline that I can bring into this sport. Or when I was an athlete, I'm a very passionate guy. I'm not like the kind of attitude. I've never been a 50% kind of guy. I've never been a half glass empty kind of guy. It's always been 1,000% all in. I've always been when I'm passionate about something, I am 1,000% in. There's nothing I won't do to go get that. And I just think that with that kind of attitude, and you are in a program where they say, hey, here's your nutrition plan, here's your strength plan, here's your mentality training plan, here's your rehab. I was 1,000% all in. And I was that athlete that was all in. And I'm 36 years old now, Shane, and I'm still that kind of mindset. That's just who I am. So for me, I was very drawn in this sport, and especially at the collegiate level, man, where I had 100% control over it. Because I truly believed, and I still do believe, I got an edge on my opponents because of that. I was not a gifted athlete. I was not an athlete that stuck out on the strength meter or the agility. It was because of what I was willing to do. I was so disciplined in everything I do. I tracked my sleep, my nutrition, my hydration. I was fanatical, Shane. When it come down to it, I was fanatical in my pursuit to being a national champion. And I could not put my head down at night and know that I cut corners. It did not sit well with me, and it never did. I couldn't do that to myself. I couldn't cheat myself. I couldn't cheat my teammates, because ultimately this sport is one-on-one, and it will come out in the toughest of moments, in the most high stress moments. The 30 seconds left in the NCAA semifinals, those are the toughest moments in this sport. And those, when you cut the corners, that's when they're going to come out. And whether they do or not, I believed it. And I truly was, that's how I lived my life and my career. And, it's funny now, I'm 36, like I said, and I'm far, far removed from my own athletic career, but I still, my wife still makes fun of me. I track my food still. I track what I drink. I track all of that, but it's become who I am. And I like the way I feel when I'm doing things right. And I try to be a reflection, and I try to be someone that my athletes can model after, living a clean lifestyle and doing the right things on how they treat their teammates, how they treat people, and the whole thing, right? But I've always been fanatical, Shane, and that's what I love about this sport, that if you can put your head down and you can do all the right things, man, you're going to be in a great situation to accomplish your goals. And like I said, I tell my athletes all the time, you're not guaranteed anything in this sport. You could do all those things right, and you could do all the things necessary, and you could still fall short. But that's life. That's okay. Listen, that's all right. You're going to get back up, and you're going to keep moving forward. But man, that's one thing that fires me up for sure.
If you could change anything in college wrestling, what would you change?
I really loved, I don't know if I would change anything right now. It's kind of I would sit and ponder on that, but I love the rule changes that we had last year, with the 3-point takedown. And I know that there was a lot of hesitation at the beginning, and a lot of people thought there was going to be friction, and some have, their own inputs on that, but I'm okay with change. I'm all right with change. And I actually, now looking back on the matches, it would be hard for me to go back to the old way, because I've gotten so accustomed to what it looks like now and how to strategize in matches and how to, win those matches with 3-point takedowns and the swipes and all that good stuff. I like where we're at right now with college wrestling. I think there's obviously tweaks that we can make, whether it comes with the technology of reviews or, what have you. But ultimately, you want a fair match between these athletes, and you want to make sure that they're called fairly, and that the integrity of the sport is kept intact.
If I gave you the magic wand and you had a wish granted, what would it be within wrestling?
Within wrestling? More programs, man. Let's get us some more Division I programs. right? I think that's I think absolutely more opportunities for kids across the country. Absolutely.
When you came out of high school, tell me about the recruiting process.
It was a whirlwind, and to be honest with you, I'm gonna be completely transparent with you here. I came from a very, very great program, right? My brother wrestled at Eastern Michigan, so he was 2 years above me in high school, so I kind of saw what initially the recruiting process looked like. He wasn't very highly recruited athlete coming out of high school, but he ended up going to Eastern Michigan and having a short career there. But I saw very, very small what it kind of looked like, but I was still young. But I'll never forget this. I had a couple coaches that were assistants I won't name them, but I had a couple of coaches that were in my program that I came from a very good program. So there's a lot of guys that were going to the highest level of Division I. And at that time, again, I wasn't very, very good my first couple of years in high school. And I remember like sitting down, I'm like, hey, I want to go to Iowa State. That was one of those programs that I was one of those kids that always had the Win magazine. My dad got it sent to my house. And every month I could not wait to go freaking get to the mailbox, take the Win magazine. I wasn't reading anything. I was just cutting pictures out, putting it in my room. My room was filled with, and at the time you had Cale Sanderson, Joe Heskett, Dwight Henson, the names go listen on of Iowa State wrestlers. And that was kind of, if you looked at my wall, there was a ton of Iowa State wrestlers naturally because they were really good at that time. So I was like, it's like kids now, like when they see Penn State kids, they see Penn State as at the top. I was like, I want to go to Iowa State. I didn't know anything about the program. I was like, I saw Iowa State, I want to go there. And I remember coaches telling me, well, maybe we start down here. And to me, when someone kind of diminished my goals and kind of put the stomp or kind of challenged me that, hey, maybe you should start down, maybe you should try some lower programs to start with. I was like, I'm all in. I'm going to Iowa State. Watch me. And I remember getting the phone call my junior year from Cale Sanderson. He was the assistant coach at the time. And he was fresh off of, fairly fresh off of winning an Olympic title in the Olympics. And I remember that moment of just like, I was shocked, not shocked, but I was like, this is what I wanted. This is everything I said I was going to do. And now I'm going to run with it. And I remember, to be honest with you, I committed to Iowa State without even seeing the campus. That's how I was. I'm dead serious. That's a true, honest story. I committed to Iowa State without even seeing the campus. I had visits set up to Virginia Tech with Tom Brands when he was at Virginia Tech. I had visits set up to Minnesota when J-Rob and Marty Morgan were at Minnesota. Iowa State, Virginia Tech, Nebraska, and Minnesota were my programs. Mark Manning was at Nebraska, Minnesota, or I'm sorry, Oklahoma State was the other one. That was the other program. And I remember, I had all of my visits set up. And when I got that phone call from Cale Sanderson and he told me how much he believed in me and where I sat in the vision of, they just had the ‑1 recruiting class in the country, the class above me. And I wanted to be a part of a program that was chasing the top. I wanted to be a part of the top. And it was Jake Varner, national champ, Olympic champion. David Zabriskie. You remember David Zabriskie? He was just that guy that won every single overtime. He won a national champ. And numerous other All-Americans that riddled, that class. But that class was the #1 recruiting class in the country. So when he called me and said, hey, you are going to fit into this program and this is how you're going to fit in, and I have full belief that you're going to accomplish your goals right here at Iowa State, I was like, sign me up. And I committed to Iowa State without ever seeing it.
So and I remember, you any visits, John, at all?
I never went on a visit. I committed to Iowa State, and I called John Smith, Mark Manning, Tom Brands, and Coach, Marty Morgan. He was the head assistant at the time, and I built a really good, strong relationship with them. I didn't take any visits. I committed to Iowa State without seeing it. That's how crazy that. When you talk about all in, Shane, that's how I was, and I knew what my goals were, and that's where I wanted to go. And my parents, again, even to go even farther back, I grew up a diehard Michigan Wolverine fan. I was the biggest Wolverine fan because my dad was a football player, right? So I grew up in the big house watching football games. I grew up around the Torella family, which is one of the best families, the Mean family. I grew up around these families, which they're first class. So I was the kid walking around youth tournaments with Michigan singlets on. But it just, for one reason or another, it just wasn't the right fit at the time. And Fast forward when I got that call from Kale and I committed, I was like, my goals were to go to Iowa State and to be a national champion. That was my goal. I never had like goals of going further on to be an Olympic champion. My goal from a young kid was at 8 years old was to be an NCAA champion. And again, when I went to Iowa State, that was the thing. But I remember calling Kale and Tom and Mark Manning and all those guys, and just how respectful and very grateful for the recruiting process, because they're all amazing coaches. But yeah, I that was my goal. I got the offer from Iowa State and I took it and ran with it. It was the best decision I've ever made.
What was it like wrestling for Cael Sanderson?
And again, to go back, like I said, I never visited Iowa State. So again, once I committed, a couple other guys committed in that class, and I was like, let me help you guys. I will help recruit this recruiting class. Bring me in for the Iowa State game. I'll help, how can we get more guys to join this class? So that was, in a part, I was doing a little recruiting as an athlete and actually seeing the campus, So, but then when I got on campus for the Iowa State Iowa football game, I was like, man, this is why I chose Iowa State, because I wanted to be a part of that rivalry. And it was like no rivalry before,
What was it like wrestling for Cael at that time?
It was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. And Cael does such a great job of investing in relationships. And that was one of his biggest things, and something that he did truly a phenomenal job from the moment he called me and was texting me. And he could relate to kids. He played video games. So I was playing video games. He fished. I fished. So we built a bond, a very strong bond. So when I got on campus, it was like we've known each other for 10 years, and I was really, really tight in college with his brother, who was on the team, Kyler Sanderson. We were roommates, after we got out of the dorms, and just very, very grateful for my experience with Coach Sanderson and that staff that is at Penn State now. That was my staff for my first 3 years of college.
Wow. So that was when you went to Iowa State. Was Bobby Douglas the head coach at that time?
So Bobby Douglas was the head coach. He was the one that was actually coming in the house, and he would bring Coach Sanderson with him as the assistant, and he was the head coach. He was the legendary coach. Yes. Coach Douglas is phenomenal. One of the absolute legends of the sport. And another reason why, he built Cael Sanderson. He built all of these guys. And I was like, I want to be a part of that program. I was Coach Douglas's last recruiting class. I was his last recruiting class. And so when I came into college, that transition had happened. So I think a month after I got on campus, that transition happened where Cael was a new head coach. I had that staff for 3 years. And then that year going into my junior season, that's when the new staff came in. That was Kevin Jackson, Chris Bono, and the other assistant coaches that joined him.
What were your feelings when Cael left?
There was a lot of uncertainty at the moment. I remember when I first heard that it was actually happening, and it was just a surreal kind of moment. Looking back on it, it was just, and obviously looking back on situations, it's never a perfect situation to be told how it's going to happen, or information. It happens so fast, and it's not anybody's fault. But looking back on it, just the way I heard about it, and then ended up getting the real information that he was leaving, it was surreal. But I remember the leadership of the class that was right above me. So you're talking about Jake Varner, David Zabriskie, Nick Fanthorpe, Mitch Mueller, those kind of guys, Nick Gallick, all those guys were right above me in that class. And I remember they had an emergency meeting as our athletes. And they were like, hey, everybody can come over to 916 Arizona Ave. That was the address. And it was like, we're going to meet as a team, or we're going to talk about this. And that's the leadership. That's like true leaders. And I remember them sitting down, and they're like, guys, we made a commitment to this university, number one. We made a commitment to this athletic department. We made a commitment to each other. We were here for a goal to win a national title. Who's in? And me, I'm like, let's freaking go. I'm in. You don't have to sell me. I'm going. And Jake Varner, everybody stayed. The only guy that ended up leaving, which is understandable, was his brother, was Kyler, and he ended up going to Penn State, and rightly so. He's family. But I would not have. There would have been no hard feelings for anybody to leave. That was our family. That it was hard. It was hard for all of us. But we also had each other to lean on and say, even though this is a hard time and there's adversity right now, there's a lot of uncertainty. We don't know who the next coach is going to be. There's going to be absolutely great candidates that are going to be coming, but we had no idea who was going to be the next coach. But we knew we had each other. We knew the passion we had for the program and the goals that we had set in mind. We were, now mind you, we were ranked second in the country at the time. So there was an incredible amount of uncertainty in that moment, but I'm grateful for the leadership that we had within our locker room that were like, hey, listen, boys, it's okay. We're going to be all right. We got each other. Let's stick together as a unit and we'll get through this.
Did Cale meet with you guys as a team, or was it just you heard?
Absolutely.
Okay. What do you remember from that meeting? What do you remember?
I just remember, obviously, he bled for that program. He was an athlete in that program. He was a young coach in that program, and he had an opportunity to take over Penn State. And I'm so proud that, of what he had done as a coach, and grateful for my times, because I'm telling you, and I actually just had this conversation, and this is being real. I just had this conversation with Cale and Cody Sanderson out at the U20, U23 trials. This is true. The older I get, Shane, the more grateful I get for the moments that I've had in this sport. And the 3 years that I had with that staff that is now at Penn State were some of the best years of my career, of my athletic, my college life was with those three guys, and the way that they took me in as family, and the way they cared for me like I was one of their own. I have nothing but the utmost respect for those guys. But what really shows the integrity and character of those guys that are there now is how, no matter where we are in life, long after I'm far removed from their athlete. Now, mind you, that was 2009, right? You're looking 15 years down the road. No matter where I am, Cale Sanderson, Cody Sanderson, Casey Cunningham, they will come up to me and give me a hug and ask me how I'm doing, ask me how my family's doing, and ask me how my parents are doing. They're always constantly checking in. Hey, if I ever need advice from them, or I can bounce an idea off them, they are the first ones to give me advice. That is true relationships. That is the definition of true. When you recruited me to the university, or Iowa State University, you told me that relationships are the foundation of this program, and they mean it. 15 years down the road, they are still investing in my life and still making sure that no matter where I am, they're always going to give me, love and support, and that means a lot to me, far beyond the wrestling part.
From a wrestling aspect, what amazes you most about Cale Sanderson?
Oh, he's a freak, right? He's off the chains. I mean, I remember I had to wrestle him in the 2011 World Team Trials, and I think he had lost a bet, or I don't know how he ended up back in the World Team Trials, but he did. And he won the World Team Trials. He went to the World Championships, but I just remember, obviously, I wrestled with him fairly often as an athlete. He was a lot bigger than me, but I remember when I wrestled him in the World Team Trials to make a World Team, and him putting his hands on me for the first time, I was like, this guy is not human. He's not human. You know what I mean? I was just like, this guy, he's on my ankle before I even know like what's going on. And it's just another level of athletic freakiness, and I'm telling you, man, that he would clean house with anybody in our room. It didn't matter who it was. And you would go drink a Mountain Dew right after. And I was just like, how is this possible? How I can't even tie my shoes right. And it's this guy, and I'm doing everything right. And this dude is just a freak. But that was my coach, man. And I have the utmost respect for him. And it's still coach. And it always will be coach. And that's the way our relationship is. And just grateful, man. I'm talking about great men that led that program, and still, Coach Douglas is getting up in age, so I've lost, obviously he's older in age right now, and in health and things like that. But when we get a chance to see him, is less than it is, but we're still, that relationship's still there. But I'm telling you, guys who came after Coach Sanderson, I cannot even begin to tell you how much respect and how much love I have for Kevin Jackson and Chris Bono. And I'm telling you, I needed Kevin Jackson at the right moment in my life as an athlete. And I'm telling you, he took me to another level. Those guys, every coach that I had in contact, the assistant coaches, I can rattle off names for days that were in that room. Tim Hartung, 3-time NCAA champion from Minnesota. There's so many guys that I got access to. And for me, being a wrestling junkie, That's what you want, man. Like I was like, holy cow, look what I just got access to over 5 years. Three legends, and then every assistant coach that you could possibly think of. And Chris Bono was still training and competing at the time. He was number one in the country. He was on world teams, and I was drilling with him and wrestling with him. And he was the kind of guy, something that really, we built our relationship at Iowa State, Chris and I. But one thing about Chris is our relationship got really tight because of he was 24/7, whatever I needed as an athlete. And this was at his prime, when he didn't need to be doing this. It didn't matter. If I wanted to come work out at 2 a.m., which would never happen, right? But if it was a 2 a.m. or I needed to get in the sauna at midnight or whatever it was, he was there. It was never a no. It was always a yes. And he always had my back. And I'm just grateful for everything he did for me in my career. And obviously that relationship is extended now. And he gave me an opportunity to be a coach and has cut my teeth and really ignited that passion to be a coach. And I love it. But I'm telling you, to go back a little bit, Kevin Jackson is one of the greatest coaches in history, in absolute history. Technically, I think he's superior than anybody I've ever been around. The way he can explain the sport and the way he can break down technique and the way he can explain strategy and tactics. And it's at a world-class level, beyond world-class. This guy is another level of just wrestling history and way. He's one of the most accomplished wrestlers in USA history, right? And it's for a reason. But a lot of guys are that accomplished, but cannot explain and teach the sport. This guy is as good, if not better, as a coach. And that says a lot because he's done so much in the sport. He is that much better as a coach. And I really, really, truly believe that. What he gave to me as an athlete is, I honestly don't know if I would have been a national champ if I did not have Kevin Jackson. And the techniques that he showed me and the visualization, everything came together at the right time. And he was a massive part of that. But one thing about KJ too is, again, doesn't matter where I am in life or doesn't that matter where I am, at university. We could obviously are opposing universities in the Big Ten. Doesn't matter. And when we see each other, it's like, to me, he was like an extended part of my family when he was my coach. And it's still that same way. When I'm having my first kid, I remember calling him after I had my first kid and letting him know I had my daughter was born. And, just because I knew he was going to be so proud of that, and that's what I wanted as an athlete. And that's what I now hope and try to foster as a coach on my end, for my own athletes, because relationships matter, man. And they don't just happen overnight. You have to invest. You have to invest in your guys. And when you invest in your guys and truly, genuinely invest in your guys, they will do anything for you.
This sport is humbling. I mean, you all-time greats. I mean, you've been at the pinnacle, national champion, been around this sport a long time. But even a guy like Jon Reader, I'm sure some dark days. When you look at your career, what were the darkest days that you experienced, and how did you persevere and go earn it?
Absolutely. I think I can recall number one, and it was kind of a pivotal moment in my career, I would say, Shane, and it's this. So obviously there was a lot of change in my career. I had two different head coaches, and then that transition happened. I had Coach Jackson as my junior year, right? That was my first year with Coach Jackson. I had some injuries. I was making a sacrifice to go 165, where I was starting to hit another little growth spurt. I should have been up a weight class at 174, but I was making a sacrifice because we had a transfer that was coming in and that he couldn't make 65. So I was like, you know what? I'm going down for the team. This will make the team stronger. We were ranked second in the country, right? We were ranked second in the country. And mind you, I should have went 174, but I didn't. Well, I wasn't as educated on the weight cutting and nutrition as I am now, long removed, right? I wish I would have known what I know now. So I wasn't as disciplined on the nutrition as I should have been, or cutting the weight the way I should have been. And what it did is it introduced a lot of injuries, right? So I was kind of knee injuries, concussions, all kinds of things. And not to, go too far down that, it just really hindered my performance my junior year. So fast forward, we get to the NCAA tournament. I think I'm the number 3 seed at the NCAA tournament. I'll never forget this moment.
You were the 4 seed.
Four seed first round, lose first round to a guy named Chris Brown out of Old Dominion, and a phenomenal wrestler and very deserving of the win. I obviously didn't deserve it at the moment. I lose. I come all the way back on the backside. And at the beginning of that season, I wrestled in the All-Star duel, and I think I was pretty close to tech falling a guy in the All-Star duel. And I'm wrestling this guy now for blood round at the NCAA tournament, right? So I'm not even hitting my knee in that tournament because I had blown my MCL out in the Big 12 final. So I'm not even hitting my knee. I'm just pulling guys down and running around them. That's all I'm doing in the tournament. So I get to the Big 12 or to the blood round, and I end up losing to that kid I had wrestled at the All-Star duel. It was the darkest moment of my entire wrestling career. And I know that's pretty sad to be like, man, but it mattered to me, and it was important to me. And I put a lot of weight on that. It mattered to me. And my goal was to be a national champion. And I fell short, and not even to be able to be on the podium. My goal was to be a 4-time All-American and be a national champion, not to be sitting out and eating nachos watching the NCAA finals. Right. And I did an All-American. And I just remember how terrible I felt, and how like it was the absolute lowest barrel moment for me ever in my career. But truly, Shane, out of that and reflecting back on my career, I don't know if I would have been a national champ had it not been for that moment. Because what that moment created was a spark that ignited a fuel inside my belly that I was not going to be denied my senior year. I went from being a round of 12 guy, had already been a 2-time All-American. I lost in the blood round to going undefeated and bonusing 32 of 39 guys my senior year. And it was because of the fuel that I had in my gut. And I remember now my girlfriend at the time, my now wife, was incredibly supportive and just, she was there for me, the lowest of lows to the highest of highs. And she can recall it the same moments, right? I was on the verge. I was like, I don't want this feeling. It almost makes you want to quit. Right. But I remember her saying, what did you think it was going to be? Did you think it was going to be easy? Did you think it was going to be easy? It's all right. This is the moment to get back up. And I remember, like, it gives me chills, man, because I was like, you're right. What the hell am I thinking? Get up. And what's the next thing that's coming in front of me? I needed something to chase. I needed something to get, going forward. So I said, listen, first number goal is I got to get my knee healthy. So I took however many months, 1 or 2 months it took to get healthy. And then I needed a goal. I needed something to chase. So what was in front of me? It was U23 World Team Trials. I was already qualified for, I don't know how, but I was already qualified. It was in Colorado Springs. I went out there. I made the university world team. And then it was game on from there. And things started rolling from that moment. But I was at the lowest moment of my career where I can really, truly reflect in to my own guys now. I've been at the lowest of what you would say moments of the sport, but I've also been at the high, and I've been everywhere in between. I've had far more losses than I've ever had wins. But I'm telling you, what you can develop as a young man, and those experiences will form you into just an incredible version of what you can be if you keep moving forward, if you keep putting one foot in front of the other. And absolutely, there will be obstacles along the way, but keep getting up, keep moving forward.
In your college career, Jon, what specific match taught you the most? You got one that stands out? One match?
Taught me the most. I would say that taught me the most. I would say my senior year, this is just there's a lot of matches that really stick out that have taught me a lot about who I am. But I won from a tactical standpoint. I remember Mac Lunas was the talk of the 174-pound weight class. I was ranked number 1 in the country. He was ranked number 2. There was a collision course that was going to happen in January in Ithaca, and it was a sold-out gym in Ithaca, and they were coming for that match. And they had made the match at the last part of the duel. It was completely packed. And I'll never forget this. This is popping in my mind right now. I'll never forget that duel. I was about to walk out onto the mat, and Mean Gene Mills. You know that name?
Yes.
Mean Gene Mills. Like, I met him in person right before I walked out on the mat. He came over and he goes, "Go get him. Go get it." And I was like, oh, that's me. That's Gene Mills, and I just think the game plan of really understanding the sport at another level and really developing game plans for certain wrestlers. I've always just been, coming up through the youth in high school, there was really there really wasn't, I wasn't exposed to really that level of game planning and how to strategize for different others. But I'm telling you, Coach Jackson was one of the best I've ever been around when it comes to that aspect of the sport. And when we put together a game plan and how to execute it and how to wrestle a certain way to go out there and execute what I needed to do to win the match. I remember going out there and executing everything that we had game planned and walking off the mat and just saying that, like you get it. You're starting to unlock different levels of this sport. And to me, it's like a video game almost. It's like you just unlocked another level. So that was a really cool moment. There's been a lot of lows in the sport, especially that moment as a junior in college. That match really taught me who I was as a person, who I was as an athlete, what kind of character, what kind of grit I had down in my belly. Was I just going to keep my head down and quit and just ride off to your senior year and see what happens? Or was I going to freaking let that thing boil and fuel me and just have that attitude of whatever it takes? And I'll never forget this too. When you talk about whatever it takes, I talked about that saying all the time my senior year. And it was something that my dad, very motivational guy, would always send me that. He was always just here and there. He would send me a text saying, hey, whatever it takes, or, dominate, or whatever it was. Very small, right? Corny, right? But I remember my wife, that is now my wife. It was Philadelphia, was the 2011 NCAA championships, where we're going to be this year, Wells Fargo Arena. And I had made the finals. So that morning of Saturday of the NCAA finals, my family, I think everybody at Iowa State was kind of out of the tournament or done with the tournament. I was the only one left. So my family had decided to go shopping for that morning session of the NCAAs, kind of out in Philly. And my wife brought me a shirt, an Under Armour shirt. And I still have it. It says, whatever it takes. And it was like, Shane, I'm talking. And when you talk about it's meant to be, it's like, I have said this for 12 months, whatever it takes. And I walked out. If there's pictures, I wish I could find a picture. I was in a tunnel with whatever it takes shirt on. So kind of a cool backstory and something behind the curtain. But I'm telling you, my wife's a rock star and very, very, very supportive, man, and everything I've ever done in the sport. And again, now to this day as a coach, I couldn't do what I do as a coach had it not be and still be for the support that I have for my wife and just understanding that the demands of this sport and everything that comes with it.
Who's the most impactful teammate you've ever had at any level?
Most impactful teammate I've ever had? Nick Passalano. Easy. Trust me, I've had numerous. I wish I would have been a teammate with some of my coaches. I wish I could go back in time. If there was a magic wand and I could go back, I've always kind of thought of that thought. Like, have you ever thought about somebody that's been really impactful coach, what it would have been like to be one of their teammates? You get such a strong bond with some of these coaches. Like, if Chris Bono was one of my teammates, I think we would have been like just dynamite teammates, right? Because we were so driven and so disciplined. But one guy that really sticks out his name's Nick Passalano, probably someone that you've never heard of. He's from Illinois. He went to Iowa State. He's one of the greatest cyclists and never All-American. I think he was a 3-time blood round guy. And I'll never forget this. I came into Iowa State as a freshman. I was a true freshman, and Nick Passalano was on his way out of Iowa State. So he was graduating and on his way out of Iowa State. Had just lost in the blood round for the third time. And I think in 2005 or 2006, whatever year it was, he was the Cyclone that actually pinned the Hawkeye to have Iowa State beat the Iowa team at that time. So he was like a hero within the Iowa State program for years. But I'll never forget the type of mentor he was for me when I came in as a young guy. So that summer period, I came and trained right away. And he was on his way out. He didn't need to do this for an incoming freshman, but he's like, listen, you're going to get up. You're going to lift with me today. You're going to get up. And there was not, there wasn't anybody there yet as freshmen. You're going to get up. You're going to lift with me. You're going to get up. You're going to go run with me. You're going to get up. You're going to drill with me. He was a 65 pounder. So we were naturally the same weight, but I was a young kid. So there was no time to get like steered in the wrong direction. He was like, this is what it's going to take. And you're coming with me. And the first guy, when I got onto the mic at the NCAA tournament, if you go back and watch that NCAA finals on YouTube or whatever it is, the first person I gave a shout out to was Nick Passalano. A lot of people are like, who's Nick Passalano? He was the guy first person to put his arm around me when I stepped foot on campus in Ames, Iowa.
That is fantastic. That is awesome. Speaking about that rivalry, Iowa State, what's your favorite memory individually and then as a team when you look at those battles you had? I know you wrestled Morningstar a handful of times.
Yeah, I don't even know what the number on wins or losses versus Ryan, but man, what an incredible wrestler and just a competitor that he was. And you knew every time that we competed against each other, you better be ready to wrestle Ryan Morningstar, because he was going to wrestle to the very, very end, whether that mean he was extended on a shot. And one thing that he did so well, and it gave me so many fits, was he was so flexible with his arms. He would almost lay out on his belly with his arms around my leg, and he would somehow figure out just grit and willingness to pull that leg in and finish late, and just the rivalry there was incredible, and it was always really fun to compete against him. But I have so much respect for that Iowa program, and obviously it was a program that I was drawn to when naturally Tom was at Virginia Tech, so I was gonna go. I would have been in that same kind of mix. You never know where that would have went, but that rivalry was incredible. And I got a little taste of that on my recruiting visit when I was committed to Iowa State, when I saw it in football, and I just saw how crazy that rivalry is. And I'm like, I can't wait to wrestle in front of. And mind you, my whole career, it seemed like every single season, whether it was a home match at Hilton Coliseum or whether it was in Carver Hawkeye Arena, we were consistently breaking the attendance records. And so you were wrestling in front of 15, 16,000 people. That's what it was. That's what that rivalry was. When you talk about a love-hate relationship where the Cyclones did not get along with Hawkeyes and it was vice versa, but there was a mutual respect, and I got a lot of respect for those guys because they're passionate, man. It comes out in a ferocious, rivalry, but they're passionate, man. They are so passionate about what they do, and they want to win. We all want to win. But I've had many dual meets between the two of them. I'll never forget this too. Go back. You're bringing up a lot of memories. Going back, I was a true freshman. And at the time, we were ranked second in the country. Iowa was number one. And the dual meet was in Iowa City. I was a true freshman. At the weight class at the time, I was 65. Mark Perry was the national returning champion. And he was at the weight class. Travis Paulson, I believe, was a 65-pounder at the time. And he was an All-American. And something that Kale did really, really well to manage me, I came in with 7 freshmen in my recruiting class, and I believe I was the only one to graduate out of that recruiting class in mine. That ended up going out. But what he did at really young in my career, and I'm very grateful for this, is I traveled everywhere with the team. I was with them at all the biggest duels. I weighed in, and I truly attacked each one of those experiences. Like I was going to get the nod, and I couldn't wait. If they were going to pull my red shirt, let's go. I'll do anything you tell me, and I know it's going to be what's best for me. And I was willing to do anything for my brothers. And I remember, I'll never forget this. We weighed in Carver Hawkeye wrestling room, and you're talking high hair sticking up on your arms. You're ready. If somebody's looking at you wrong, there's going to be a fight pretty soon. And I remember weighing in, and they're like, Reader, be ready to go. You're going. And I'm like, hell yes, let's go. I'm wrestling. I couldn't wait. And I ended up not wrestling, but I think they lost the dual meet, or we did lose the dual meet. It came down to, one match or whatever it was. It was just a very, very exciting duel, very, very hostile. But I was like, that's why I'm in this, man. That's why we're in this, to compete at the highest level in front of crowds like that, and put on and score points and be exciting for the crowd. But yeah, to kind of end that on the Iowa State, far removed from my career, I've built a relationship with the Brands brothers, and man, what great people they are. And I text Terry Brands, every now and again, and just an unbelievable. You would think, I was never his athlete. This guy is one of the most genuine guys I've ever talked to, and he's always putting his arm around me at wrestling matches. And that's what I love about this sport. You can be at the highest of the rivalry, and then backstage you're like, listen, how you doing? Putting your arm around you, and it's life, right? There's so much more to it. but yeah, a lot of great experiences. And, I get a chance to see those guys a lot now in the circles that we run in, and just a ton of respect for those guys.
Were you at the dual meet, John, when like Gable and Cale were out getting after
That
it?
was my true freshman year. That was my true freshman year. That's when Gable was out there, and that's when Tim Hartung and Cale. That was my true freshman year. I was probably on the side ready to go. That was it. That was it.
I mean, what a baptism to that rivalry.
Oh yeah, that was amazing, and that same kind of intensity was up in the locker room where we were weighing in. It was just like you knew at any moment it was ready to burst. It was at any moment, and no program wanted to give any give. That's what's so beautiful about that rivalry is nobody wanted to give an inch. Everybody wanted to take. And that's what's so great about college athletics.
Outside of your national championship night, because that's the obvious answer to this next question. Aside from that night, what is one day in your college career that you'd want to relive?
One day in my college career that I'd want to relive. Oh man, Friday night of my junior year. Friday night of my junior year of my NCAA tournament. I think that would be one thing that it still haunts me, right? I think it was a molding, a forming match, a forming moment and pivotal moment in my career and who I was as a man. But I'd be remiss if I told you I didn't want to go back and win that match. And to be a 4-time All-American is an incredible feat, and it takes a lot of discipline and a lot of sacrifice and a lot of doing the right things to be on that podium 4 times. And my goal was never to just get on there once. My goal was to come in and to win it 4 times. I can even go further back. One moment that I was like, I was a redshirt freshman. I wrestled Mosa Fay. You guys remember Mosa Fay? Unbelievable athlete. Just very probably a name a lot of people don't talk about now, but very, very, very talented guy. And I ended up losing in a close match. I was a freshman. He was a lot older than me, and I remember I lost to him, and I had that attitude like I was recruited by Cale, and I remember going backstage, and I remember Jake Varner looking at me and goes, basically just saying, there's only been one guy that's ever won 4 national titles and went undefeated, right? So stop holding on to that. It's all right. Get back up and whatever. This is your journey. And I just kind of, Cale Sanders was my coach. I want to be a 4-time undefeated national champion. And that was a big moment in my career too, where like, hey, let's go. This is really hard, and you gotta keep moving forward.
Why has Jake Varner fit in so well with Cale Sanderson, in your opinion?
I just think he's a guy. He's a tireless worker, a relentless worker, and relentless competitor, an unbelievable human. He's everything. He does everything. He's one of those guys that you want to be around. He attracts high level, high end type of guys, and he's another guy that, again, was molded and formed by Cale at Iowa State, and he saw what it took and how much Cale invested in relationships and what that could do if you truly, genuinely do that. And I think I see that now as he's in his own coaching career and how great of a job he's doing in that. And certainly he's definitely a part of that equation that is having all that success at Penn State. And Casey Cunningham is the same way, and just an unbelievable person. And Coach Cody Sanderson, they're just high-end, high character, high integrity guys that you want to be around. And when you're around them, they make you better people. And that's just outside of wrestling. Inside the room, they're all incredibly accomplished guys that had great careers and that are very special. And they do a great job leading, but they do it the right way. It's not phony. It's not, it's very genuine and from the heart. And I'm just grateful, again, to have had experience with those guys.
If you could go back and have a conversation with Jon Reader heading to Iowa State, what would you tell him?
Oh, man. I don't know. I would say be all in, man. Keep your head down and keep working hard. And just like I always have been, I would give myself the same advice, right? Keep your head down and keep attacking. Never settle. Keep moving forward. And great things will come. And you know what? Put your arm around people and bring them with you, and that's something that I wish I would have done a better job as a younger athlete, is bringing more people with me. You know what I mean? Is I've always been a guy that's been really, really driven and intrinsically motivated to do more and to continue to find ways to challenge myself. But if I would look back as a younger guy, I would have brought more guys with me, or said, hey, come with me. This is what we're going to do. This is, you always have those hindsight 2020 kind of moments, right? But definitely, I think that now is where I'm at in life now. It's about motivating and impacting people. So I'm always trying to find more ways to do that. And I definitely could have done a better job as a young kid, kind of more selfish at the time, and just find ways to be the more impactful for people around me.
What is your proudest moments as a coach?
I think it's seeing people realize their full potential, or have a glimpse of that full potential, and really accomplish special things. And I've had guys not accomplish things in this sport, but accomplish things academically and in life, and maybe come to realization that they fell short of their goals, but the lessons that they learned in the years that they had underneath our program had formed them into the young men and husbands and leaders in the communities, and come back and really say, hey, listen, man, I wish I would have done things right, or I wish I would have done. But there's many All-Americans and national champs that you look back on and seeing those guys accomplish their goals, or even when Seth Gross won his national title, and there's only a select group that really understands what that feels like when you get your hand raised in the NCAA finals. It's such a surreal moment, and it's something that you're continually chasing. It's something that I'm so passionate about, my guys truly getting a chance to feel that. But when you say you want to be a national champ, there becomes a lot that comes behind that. You don't just say you want to be a national champ, right? There's a lot that comes with that. And seeing kids understand when Seth Gross got his hand raised and see that emotion that erupted out of him, I knew what that emotion felt like, and I can relate to that. And I was like, man, how do I bottle that up? And I wish I could give every one of my athletes that experience and that feeling. And it just a very rewarding, I'm so grateful to be in the seat that I am in now, and have the perspective I have on sports. And I really recall on all my experiences, the losses, the wins, the in-betweens, the regrets, the things I did do right. And I try to help my guys, through my own experiences. And really, truly, Shane, I really try to live a lifestyle that is reflection of what it's going to take to win at this level.
What is your biggest regret?
My biggest regret is, to be honest with you, is not taking care of my body in a better way. And I think that's probably one of my biggest regrets. I've always been a guy that's went so just through the wall, and I wouldn't change anything. Obviously I am who I am, and it's kind of cut who I am, right? It's built me into who I am. But I just think, being a little smarter in situations where I could have kind of maybe not, things didn't go as far as they probably did. Like maybe, not taking care of an injury, where I could have nipped it in the butt now instead of letting it go a couple months. Just being smarter from that aspect. Man, regrets of a nutrition standpoint, and that's just not being educated in the way that I am now. And now, like, I'm 6 years here at Wisconsin. I truly thought, when I was 30 years old, I thought I knew what nutrition was. And I knew how to educate my athletes on nutrition and what it took to be a high-level performance athlete. And I got here and I was completely wrong. And the education I've gotten the last 6 years, if I would have had that now, or if I would have had it when I was an athlete at 18 years old, who knows where that could have taken me.
Most impactful nutrition tip. What would you tell me?
I just think of balance. I think and I'm not a guy that's gonna harp on, you need to be this, you need to be that. I just think a well-balanced diet, fruits, vegetables, good carbohydrates, lean meats. We've got a world-class nutrition program that I'm an epitome of it. I believe in it. I did it 6 years ago, and I lost a ton of weight, leaned out, got to 6% body fat, and I've kind of followed that game plan, and I believe in it. And I feel like now don't get me wrong, every nutrition plan, everybody's different and what their needs are, and what worked for me might not work for somebody else, or maybe their requirements are a little different. I just know what worked best for me. And that's something that I believe at this level, you have to be very individualized based when it comes to being a world-class athlete. When you come into this program, you and I are not going to be on the same nutrition plan. And that would be very foolish for me to give you the same nutrition plan as me. And because number one, your body's going to respond to different types of foods. You're maybe on a, you might be trying to lean out when I'm trying to bulk up, and your requirements, you being a smaller guy, me being a heavier guy, your requirements and daily energy is going to be different. So there's a bigger picture, and it's more complex than you would think. But if you can understand how you work as an individual, I'm telling you, I praise our nutrition program to the highest level, because I know the resources that we pour into our student athletes. And really, I wish I would have had that. It wasn't really a hot topic when I was in college, 15 years ago. It wasn't a big thing, right? It was, hey, here's a 64-ounce Gatorade after weigh-ins. And me, coach said, here's your 64-ounce Gatorade. Well, guess what happens? That whole 64 ounce is gone. And I'm like, why did I go out there and wrestle like I got, a fish belly, or why do I got diarrhea, or whatever it may be? And I was just like, whatever my coach said, I'm going to do. But now these kids have the access to just incredible amount of knowledge and really understanding who they are nutritionally. And I'm telling you, to me, that's again where you can get an edge as an athlete. And I to me, in our program, it's a non-negotiable. Nutrition's a non-negotiable. You say you want to be a national champion. Well, here's the roadmap. Here's how we're going to dial you in, and you're going to be working hand in hand with our nutritionist. And if you lean into this, you are going to be in a better situation, because 99% of your opponents will not lean into this, because it's too hard. It's too hard to be consistent when you're out and you're, trust me, it's just like anything else. You go out into public, or you go out to a restaurant, the temptation to eat that cheese curd, or that temptation to eat that or drink that Mountain Dew, it's there. We all want it. Of course, I want a cheese curd and a Mountain Dew, or a Code Red Mountain Dew. Of course, I want that. I do want that. But I know what my goals are, and my goals outweigh that, and my discipline's going to outweigh that. And that's just who I've always been. Call me crazy, call me passionate, but that's what I believe in. And I'm really excited that our student athletes have that level of care and have that level of passion when it comes to our nutrition. And man, what a great resource to have.
Final question for you, Jon. If you had to make a cross-country trip, 3 people, dead or alive, that you've never met, who's going on that drive?
3 people. My father, absolutely.
Well, no, it's got to be who you've never met.
I've never met. Holy cow.
3 people you've never met.
Jocko Willenick, Joe Rogan, and I like Joe Rogan, and I like Jocko, and then never met. Man,
dead or alive. Dead or alive, even.
Dead or alive. Shoot. I'm just gonna go with 2. Let's just go with 2. Let's go with 2. Goggins. Let's go with Goggins.
Oh, there you go.
That car ride. Think about the energy in that car ride.
You guys wouldn't need any fuel. You guys. I mean,
I don't even think Goggins would be in the car. He would be running.
Oh man, Jon, this has been an absolute blast. Thank you so much. Love to get your insight. And what I love about this podcast is everybody's got a story. Everybody's got ups and downs, areas where they learn, regrets, things they're proud of. And this has been great to hear the story of Jon Reader here on the Go Earn It podcast. Thank you so much.
Let's go. Thank you.